Namaskar and welcome to my channel. This is the second episode of the podcast, and I hope that it will inspire our budding lawyers to strive for excellence and be more socially aware and responsible citizens. Today, I am absolutely thrilled and delighted to have Justice Srikrishna with us. Sir has been in the legal profession for half a century. He is universally adored and respected for his contribution to the field of law and public policy as a counsel, judge, arbitrator, and independent expert. Sir has also been my role model since my law school days and has in fact inspired me not only to specialize in arbitration, but also to be a lawyer with strong ethical values. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, so this first question is for all our law aspirants. What motivated you to pursue law?
There is a book written about Dr. Manmohan Singh. Have you read it? It's called The Accidental Prime Minister. So I think I'm the accidental lawyer. My father was a lawyer, very senior lawyer, practicing in the Bombay High Court and Supreme Court. But he was strongly against my becoming a lawyer. He wanted me to take the IAS examination and become one of the government officers, the IAS officers. Somehow that didn't suit my mentality. And I was, in those days when I passed out of my intermediate examination, I was interested in doing science. Those days were the days when Homi Bhabha was the star, and then the Atomic Energy Commission had recently started. People were looking to it. India was going to make headlines on research in atomic energy. And I wanted to do it. So I went in for science. And after having completed my BSc, I had applied for MSc, and I wanted to do either nuclear physics or quantum mechanics, one of them, whichever was option available. In the meanwhile, there was an argument with my father and me, and my father made some casual remark and said, "You can't be a good lawyer unless you have some super brain or something of that sort." So, usually I can't resist the challenge. So I told him, if you can be a lawyer, I can be a better lawyer. So he said, "Oh, son, it's easy to talk, but it's difficult to show it in practice." I said, "Okay." Next day morning, I applied to the law college, and thereby hangs a tale. Then I become a lawyer. And I always say this, that the loss of the legal community was the gain of the scientific world as a result of this switch on my part. So the scientific world was happy because I didn't become a scientist. The legal world was sorry that I decided to be a lawyer.
Sir, I would beg to differ, but I will move on to the next question. And that is that in 2015, we were very, very honored to have you deliver the Principal Dr. T.K. Tope Memorial Lecture commemorating 50 years of Srimati Vinta Devi Tope Social Service League of Government Law College. I believe you were a student at GLC when Dr. Tope was the principal. Would you like to share some of your memories of law school with us?
Yes, when I applied for the law school, I was required to submit myself to an interview by Dr. Tope. I had heard of him. He was, I think, principal in the law college, also part-time member of the law commission at that time, I think. And it was, quite an awe-inspiring thing to be by the clerk to tell me that Saab abhi aapko milenge, and then I had to knock on the door, walk in, sat down, he looked at me and said, he saw the application form and he recognized my father's name. "Oh, you are so-and-so son." I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "I'm very happy you're taking law. All the best to you. I hope you'll turn out to be as famous as your lawyer, as your father." I said, "Thank you, sir, with your blessing." And that's it. And later on, of course, I used to attend his lecture. He used to teach us constitutional law, because he had also written a book on constitutional law. quite enjoyable. I learned a lot of constitution from him. And then later on, he became Vice Chancellor of the Bombay University. That is how the journey started. And I used to meet him even after that, once in a way, in some function or the other. And that was my interaction with Tope. And then, of course, I was very happy when you called me for that event.
Lecture.
Which was organized in memory of, which is called what? Vinita Tope, no?
Yes, the committee was named after his wife.
Yeah.
All right. So my next question is for everyone watching this podcast who is aspiring to join the judiciary. So you had a flourishing practice as a counsel. In fact, you were designated as a senior advocate of the Bombay High Court much before you were appointed as a judge of the Bombay High Court. So what was your thought process and motivation behind joining the judiciary in those days?
Again, I was an accidental judge also. Things have always conspired, events have conspired themselves to push me forward into some direction which I had originally not planned to take. I never had thoughts of becoming a judge. I was happy doing my lawyering, became a senior lawyer, became a senior counsel somewhere in 67 or 68, I think. And then I had very busy practice, there was no doubt about that. And one day, I had gone to the Supreme Court for something, I still remember it was early first week of February or something like that, in 1990. When I came back, there was an urgent message from the Chief Justice to me. The Secretary of the Chief Justice came running to me when I was sitting in the law library and said, the Chief Justice wants to meet you urgently. I thought maybe some connection with some matter coming up or parallel and kept for reservation or something. So I ran to his chamber and I said, Chief, what is the matter? You know, there was a situation there at that time of about 7 judges coming under a cloud because of various serious allegations against them. And as a result of which, the then Chief Justice Mukherjee, Chitatosh Mukherjee, he had refused to give work to 7 of them. So as a result, and the bar, both the bars, the appellate side bar and the original side bar, had boycotted their courts. So there was a serious situation of lack of trust, lack of confidence, and lack of honor of the Bombay High Court judiciary as such. So at that time, the Chief Justice called me and then said, I'm going to recommend that he said, I want you to become a judge. So I said, why me, chief of all the persons? I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing. He said, no, this is the circumstances. There are 7 judges who are under cloud and I am unable to give work to them because of the fact that the bar has boycotted them. So I want you people to resurrect the honor of the High Court and then bring back the traditions that the High Court seems to have lost. It's a question of do or die for you now. I said, okay, chief, but only thing is give me a week's time because I know in those days, this salary that was being paid to the judges, High Court judges, was abominably low. So I said, I don't know that I will be able to take this sudden drop in my earnings, but I would like to consult with my wife and then come back to you after a week. I said, okay, talk to your wife and come back. I came home, talked to my wife, and then said, do you think we'll be able to manage? She said, of course we'll be able to manage, don't worry. And she encouraged me. So there I am. Next week I go and say, okay, chief, I don't know what this job involves, but I'm ready for it. And then on 30th, but I must say, this is something to be to the credit of the government which was in power at that time. The first talk with the Chief Justice was on 30th. Things moved very swiftly, and first week of February. And then the things moved very fast. And on 30th of July, 7 of us, out of which I think six of them were practicing lawyers, four senior counsels. We were all installed and became judges, sworn in on 30th of July. Within a period of less than probably 5 months, things moved very fast. So
That's amazing.
That was that the way that 30th of July 1990 was when I burnt my bridges. There was no going back. So I survived for the next 16 and a half years, I think, as a judge.
Sir, in fact, you started practicing before the Bombay High Court in the year 1962, specializing in industrial and labor matters.
Yeah.
And next year, that is in 2022, you complete 60 years in the legal profession. When you look back at your legendary career, what are some of the biggest learnings that you'd like to share with our audience?
Okay, let me count it this way. I was a lawyer from 62 to 1990, that is 28 years. Then I was a judge in the Bombay High Court from 1990 to 2011, 11 years and a few months. Then 1 year as Chief Justice in Kerala, and then roughly 5 years in the Supreme Court. In all, a journey of about 16 and odd years, I think. What did I learn? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know whether I have learned anything or not. But I would only say that, assuming that I have learned something, I remember having read a book by a famous American lawyer in which he said something which interested me. He said that for any lawyer, he should always remember 3 C's. One is, he is responsible to the court. First of all, he is an officer of the court. So his job is to behave like an officer of the court, not behave like a ruffian inside the court, which I find is what is happening nowadays, right from the magistrate's court to the Supreme Court. People just think that they can bully the judge and get away with it. So C is court. The next C is the client. Don't forget that you are there only because the client wants you to be there and give him the best of your ability to solve whatever his problem is. Just because these two are there, don't forget, ultimately, the third C is conscience, that you are answerable to your conscience. So do not do anything that is unethical, unprofessional. And at least in my days, it was always necessary to groom yourself in some chamber of a senior, learn not only law, but the elements of how to address a court, how to behave with your colleagues. What is it that you should do when you are sitting in the court? How do you observe decorum? How do you observe the demeanor of the judge? These are something that we learn. And ultimately, the 3C6 will continue whether you are. But only thing is, when you get onto the bench, you are not concerned with the second C, namely the client. You are only concerned with the court. Behave in the court like a judge. Don't make it into an arena for drama or something like that. Don't lose your temper. Be consistent with the dignity of the office that you hold. And finally, the third C remains, conscience remains. So always ask your conscience, is it good, is it bad? Am I doing something right? Am I doing something wrong? That will guide you throughout the life.
Thank you, sir. You have been a role model for students and lawyers alike. I was keen to know who has been your role model in the field of law.
Father has been. My father was well known as a lawyer, very skillful lawyer. And apart from law, I learned a whole lot of good things about him, about the legal profession, and also how to be a good person in life. So he has been, of course, as lawyers, I used to look at Palki Bala, then Sirbai, and a whole lot of other serials who were there at that time. And people like Soji Sorabji, and Fali Nariman were still youngsters at the bar when I joined the bar. Both of them must be around 10 years, like give or take 2 years, senior to me. So when I just joined the time, they were already 10 years already in the bar and well respected. I learned a lot of things from my colleagues interaction with colleagues at the bar, colleagues on the bench, talking to seniors. Of course, I must say this and somewhat flippantly, when I joined the judiciary, one of my senior judges, I don't know whether he was serious or whether he was just joking. He said, Srikrishna, I'll tell you a mantra for becoming a successful judge. I said, what is it? I was very keen because I was just joining the judiciary. He said, in the first year, you read your briefs, listen to all the arguments carefully, and write a judgment. Second year, you become senior. So you can ignore the brief, just listen to the arguments and write a judgment. From the third year onwards, he said, don't read the brief, don't listen to the arguments, write what you want, you'll be a successful judge. And I'll say that is something that I've done throughout my life. I never listened to anybody, I never read any briefs. And I don't know whether I've been a successful judge or not. That's exactly what I did.
Thank you, sir. So you've also been very vocal about adopting alternative dispute resolution mechanisms to
Yes.
reduce burden on judiciary. You have also served as an arbitrator in a variety of disputes, both domestic and international. Do you think that the arbitration landscape is changing in India, especially in view of the recent amendments to the Arbitration and Conciliation Act? And what are some of the broad areas of concern that require perhaps an immediate solution to make India an arbitration-friendly jurisdiction?
My own reading of the whole situation is that, unfortunately, instead of the arbitration being party driven, arbitration being party autonomy driven, we have too much interference by the judges. The judges are like, in America there is a term called helicopter parenting. I don't know whether you know what the term means. Helicopter parenting means that the parents are always hovering around the child. Everything, don't do this, don't do that, don't drink water, don't do this, stand up, sit down, and that kind of thing. Now, unfortunately, I have a feeling that the judges have a tendency to do that in this country also. So, instead of being party-driven, arbitration always gets court-driven. The court should be there like a referee. You blow the whistle when there is something wrong. You don't expect a referee to indulge in football or hockey, nor do you expect the umpire to pick up the ball and throw it at the wicket or, say, participate in the game. I find that their courts are indulging in it that too much. Although I must confess that over the years, on account of constant, let's say, pressure from the rest of the world, things have improved much better. But if you want to be a hub of international arbitration, we are centuries behind. I must confess that that was one of the ideas with which I headed the committee which recommended institutionalization of arbitration. We made a number of suggestions, but all suggestions ultimately have a tendency to somehow go to get lost in a centripetal force. That whatever happens, the government must have a control over that. That is something. This hand of the big brother should somewhere or the other should stop. Otherwise, you are not going to. Because then what happens if there is no party autonomy at all? You are always driven, whether it is question of choosing arbitrator, whether it is choosing whether this is good or that is bad, whether the award is good, award is not good. Leave it to them. They want to solve it without coming to you. Why on earth are you going to sit on their head all the time? This has been my constant endeavor to say that it is wrong. And I learned it the hard way. As a judge, I sat on, I delivered a number of judgments, both in the Bombay High Court, in Kerala High Court, and in the Supreme Court on this issue. And you will notice I have done exactly what I'm saying now.
Absolutely, sir. So the next question is not just for law students, but all our young audience watching the podcast. This is on the importance of understanding dharma and have integrity of character, especially when the perception about the youth today is that they want to achieve success and build wealth very, very quickly and in the shortest possible manner.
Well, that is a dilemma that confronts every youngster who is stepping into a profession, whether it is law, medicine, or architecture, or any other profession. Yes, I do concede that money and wealth are necessary in life. But unfortunately, we forget one thing. Money is not an end or an end of life. Money is a means. But means to what? Means to a further goal. That goal should be your own happiness, your own individual satisfaction of having lived a worthwhile life. I'll only say this. When I was a very young kid, maybe 6, 7, 8 years old, or maybe even 10 years old, I don't remember it because it happened a long way ago. My father used to teach me two couplets. One of them, both of them, I think, were from Bhartrihari. One was, money is necessary, but how much money is necessary? So he would say, and he used to quote this from Bhartrihari. He said, Akritva parasantapam agatva khalamandiram anutsrijya satam vartma yat svalpam apitadvam. He says, this roughly translated means this. Without having to cause pain or distress to your fellow human being, without having to go begging to a house of a crooked person, without having to swerve or deviate from the path of rectitude, whatever little you earn is much more than what you require. That was one thing. And the other thing was an interesting imaginary conversation between goddess Lakshmi, who is the repository of all wealth and the giver of all wealth, at least as we Hindus recognize. So, and a learned person, probably a poet or a high school teacher or a primary teacher or even a judge for that matter. The judges are by definition poor people. Though I must say that nowadays judges get too many things. It goes something like this. Padme murkha janeshu dadasi dravinam vidvatsu kim matsaraha. So it says, Oh Padme, Padme is, oh Lady Lakshmi, why is it that you are in the habit of giving money to fools and not to learned people? She gives an answer, she gives him a very broad smile, I suppose, and then says, Naham matsarini, I am not jealous of learned people. Nachapi chapala, nor am I fickle-minded as most of the people think. Naivasti murkhe ratihi, nor do I have any special affinity for fools. Murkhebhyo dravinam dadami nitara. I confess that I always give money to fools. Tatkaranam shruyatam. Kindly listen to the reason for that. Vidwan sarvajaneshu pujitatanuhu. A learned man is respected wherever he goes, irrespective of his bank balance. Murkhasya nanyagati. A fool has to depend on his bank balance or his wealth or material assets. He has no other option. Therefore, I have to give him money. So this is something that I have repeated wherever I have gone, wherever youngsters have asked me the question. And the third one is famous. I think it was, I'm not sure, this is a doha from probably Kabir. I'm not sure who's the, or Tulsidas, I'm not sure.
Sai itna dijiye.
Sai itna dijiye jabe kutuma samay. Aap bhi bhukha na rakhe, sadhu na bhukha jaye. So please give me enough so that I can sustain my family and also be of helpful to people in society. That is the requisite that is there. If you can meet that, everything else is bonus in life. You don't have to crave after bonus. It comes to you, fine. If it doesn't come to you, don't. That's the way I've looked at life. And God has been merciful to me. At no point has God let me down. Even as a lawyer, as a judge, post my retirement, God has kept me happy. And I never felt oppressed by considerations of money. And let me tell you, my father left me zero. He believed in this thoroughly. Zero bank balance, no assets. I own no property. So I don't have any inherited wealth, nothing of the sort. Right from that time, the Chief Justice asked me whether I will become a judge till today. My answer has always been, we'll do it.
Thank you, sir. In fact, one more, because, these have been some of my favorite teachings as well from you. I think one time you quoted this, I think it was from the Padma Puran, you can correct me. And you said that the basic rule in life is that whatever is bad for you cannot
Yeah,
be good for
yeah.
others.
That I always I'm fond of saying that if it is, what is it that you are required to do? What does your dharma teach you? Sruyatam dharma sarvasvam shrutva chaivavadharyata. Padma Purana says, kindly listen to the essence, the quintessence of dharma. And shrutva chaivavadharyatam. Having heard it, keep it constantly in your mind. Focus on that. What is it? Atmana pratikulani pareshanna samacharit. Whatever is bad for you, do not do it to others. If stealing my money is bad for me, I don't steal from me. If running away with my wife is bad for me, I don't run away with somebody else's wife. If killing me is bad for me, I don't kill another. If hitting me and causing violence to me is bad for me, I should not do it to others. You follow this principle in life, that is the quintessence of dharma. The rest of it is all right. If you have time, study it. If you don't have study, just keep this to itself.
Thank you so much, sir. And that brings me to our last question for this podcast, which is how have you been coping up with the pandemic and the new normal? I think
Oh, yeah.
initially when we spoke during the lockdown, you were learning Japanese. So
Yeah.
is there anything new that you are learning or reading which you would like to share with our viewers?
I'm continuing. One thing about the pandemic, I was somewhat arrogant and thinking that I was young. But now the pandemic, all my relatives, my daughters, my brothers, my sisters-in-law, everybody keeps calling me up and saying, "You're old. Don't get out of the house. You're old. Be careful. You're old." So I realized probably I am old, and I've come to reconcile myself with the old age. And one thing is, right from February or March last, I think after 11th of March, I have not stepped out of the house except for early morning walk, which also with the mask and all the necessary requisite protocol being observed. I have not stepped out. I kept myself absolutely within the four corners of my house. I don't interact with the people. I don't allow people to enter my house also. And I already had one dose of the vaccine, and I'm hoping to get it in the next 8 or 10 days. And that will probably restore my confidence. But I'm busy doing this kind of work. People ask me questions, legal, non-legal. I keep answering them. And of course, my Japanese is going on. I'm studying. I'm happy to say that I appeared for 3 tests, and I stood first in all the 3 tests. And I hope to continue with the same unabated vigor because I'm enjoying it.
So I hope all our viewers got another reason to be inspired by Justice Sri Krishna. Thank you so much, sir, for joining the podcast. I'm still very new at doing all of this, so if there were any mistakes from my part, I apologize for that, and to the audience as well. And thank you, despite your busy schedule, you took out time for this. Thank you so much, sir. It means a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, sir.